Thank you. It's a pleasure again to be here next year. Now it's the first slot in front of the pirate ship trip, so I'm also honored to be invited here. And today I wanted to tell you about the fishermen. The wise fishermen never trust the weather. So I'll be talking about how you can bypass the modern anti-phishing protections. Last year I talked about how to protect yourself and how to also prevent bots from going and analyzing your phishing pages. And now I want to expand on the subject and talk about all of the methods that I found out in general. So quickly about who am I. My name is Kuba Gretzky. I'm an offensive security tools developer. I'm an ex-game hacker. I used to hack MMO games back in the days, and I learned all the skills back then, and I use them these days. I do not do reverse engineering anymore, but I now focus mostly on phishing because it's easier, like obviously. So I run the BreakDev security blog. You can check my research there, and I also post all the updates about my tools over there. I've started Evilginx in 2017, and it has become my full-time job right now. It's all thanks to you, like wonderful people who actually support me with all the other projects, like BreakDev Red, the community for red teamers I started about 2 years ago, so everyone is free to join. And the Evilginx Mastery that I released 2 years ago, which is like a video course on how to use the tool that I made too hard to use for everyone, and I had to create a video course to teach everyone how to use. So thank you to everyone who actually supported this as well. And Evilginx Pro, I have been talking about it for a couple of years, I think right now, and every time I said it's going to be released in the next quarter of the year, but now finally I can stop doing that, and it's finally released. So what am I doing exactly? Like right now I'm focusing full-time on Evilginx Pro and making it streamline the whole process of getting your red team engagements in terms of phishing working like fluently out of the box, so you do not have to work, put extra work to make everything run for you. So like I said, offload excess tasks from red teams. That's my main goal. Also, not many know that Gdynia, with the city that we are here, I'm also from this city. It originated as a fishing village like several hundred years ago. So now I'm preserving the original fishing tradition in a way by running my own fishing business. So I run the BreakDev Red Discord community, which is also tied to this whole panel that I did for sales of Evilginx Pro. And I thought that I'm gonna set up like this whole licensing system that I wanted, but for that I needed a custom solution for the shop engine. So I thought, okay, let's make it all by myself from scratch. So this is essentially how it looks like with the registration form. You can, single one of you can apply, and every submission is manually verified. So this is the admin panel that I had to write for myself to actually do the verifications of each submission, which takes a lot of time. And later I also made it like in a panel where you can actually assign all of the licenses to Evilginx Pro with like the whole card system, like adding items, generating invoices, and this like took 6 months too long, probably because I wanted to focus on making a hacking tool, and then I got into this rabbit hole by having to create like this full shop engine. So I approved right now about 1,700 hackers into the community. Every single submission was verified by hand. And then I figured, okay, I made like a shop engine from scratch, and then I invited 1,700 hackers into it. And what have I done, essentially? So, but so far it's good. Like nobody actually managed to crash it yet, so challenge accepted to maybe some of you. So first of all, I wanted to talk about what the talk is about. So I wanted to talk about the state of reverse proxy phishing detections, essentially. So I'll be focusing on reverse proxy phishing. I will not be focusing on the detection of emails that you send with the phishing links because it's an entirely different subject. I want to focus on the detection of the phishing pages themselves. So, for example, I'll be talking about, in general, specifically about how to, for example, bypass Google Chrome safe browsing later in the talk. So I divided the the anti-phishing evasion tactics into three separate layers. I call them three layers of deception. So first of all, we can do stealth. So this is when your TLS certificate for your phishing page gets registered. And maybe some of you don't know, but I also mentioned it many times. These certificates will get uploaded to TLS transparency report, where everyone can actually browse it, and all the bots and automation tools can actually grab it and analyze your host names that you use for your phishing websites. So here the goal is to prevent public exposure of your phishing hostname. Then the next step is deception. This is when your phishing URL gets exposed. It will get exposed because you will send it to your target, and you will have to send it to your target because they need to click it, right? So they had to get phished. So the next step is to prevent actually the automated scanners from being able to analyze what's on the page and considering it, marking it as malicious. Then the last step, if all else fails, it is the last resort, is the obfuscation. So when your phishing page gets exposed, we should prevent automated scanners from actually being able to detect this is a phishing attempt. So we should make it look as legit as possible. So when someone clicks the link, they see, okay, it's a Wikipedia page. Like nothing is happening here. Just the domain doesn't match. So here you can see it's in a form of like onion layers, or like whatever. These are just these three layers. So the outer layer, you can see it's host name and URL is not known. And then we can apply wildcard certificates to protect our host names of our phishing pages. And then the inner layer has the URL that is known. And here we have BotGuard or Cloudflare Turnstile, for example, that will analyze the telemetry of the browser. And the next page is when the page is accessible and we need to perform obfuscation. So we'll start with the first layer, which is stealth. So this will be like simple stuff. Some of you already know about it. So this is about protecting the phishing hostname. So every phishing hostname needs a TLS certificate, obviously, because HTTP is not supported anymore, like it's clear text and nobody needs it anymore. And it also looks much more legit if you have like this green lock icon in the web browser, which is all that is about. So every registered certificate, TLS certificate, is made public. So you can go to crt.sh and you can actually check any domain that you want, and you will get all the history of all the TLS certificates applied to this domain, including all of the subdomains as well. So then when the host name is known to the bot or the security product, they can resolve it to the IP address, and of course the HTTPS server can then be analyzed externally. So what happens when you actually do non-wildcard TLS certificates for your phishing engagements? So here is the screenshot that I made. It's for my domain evilginx.com that I use for all the product-related websites. And you can see there's like a full history of when the certificate was registered, when it expires, and what is the full host name, including all of the subdomains. This is actually good also for if you're doing pen testing, for example. It's great to use it to find out all the hidden subdomains of the website that you are essentially checking. So now we can see, like in 2018, something fishy has been happening, like on this domain. And you can see there's like linkedin.evilginx.com, there's Facebook. So this is actually from the time when I used this domain to do tests for Evilginx, and it's still like contaminated the whole history. So you need to remember that one does not simply remove TLS certificate from the internet. So once you do some bad stuff and fishy stuff, it will remain there forever. So I need to live with it as well. So then we have wildcard TLS certificate, and what's the difference? So essentially, if you use a wildcard TLS certificates, the first level of the hostname will get, you can say, obfuscated because it will hide the top-level subdomain. So if someone wanted to actually find out the hostname of your phishing page, they would need to actually implement some kind of a dictionary attack to just brute force the subdomain because it is not clearly known. So this, of course, happens until your URL gets known and it's burned because you need to send it to someone. So they are not able also to connect to your HTTPS server by IP without knowing the hostname. The next level is deception, the next layer. So the phishing URL eventually will get exposed because you also want it to get exposed to the target. And the security products will open the phishing URL and try scanning the page to see what is in there and what is actually its contents. So how can we prevent the bots from seeing what's in the phishing page? So some of you are already probably familiar with Cloudflare Turnstile, which actually blocks traffic, the bot traffic, essentially what it tries to do. And some people also use it to analyze the traffic coming to your phishing pages and block it. So in Evilginx Pro, I actually implemented my cheap knockoff of Cloudflare Turnstile. And this is essentially how it works, like step by step. So you would get Evilginx forwarding the connection to the spoofed website. So you can set up, for example, wikipedia.org as your spoofed website when your phishing link is open. It will grab the contents out of it. It will return the contents to the user's browsers, including the BotGuard script, which essentially will run within the page. The page is hidden with CSS style set on body to hidden. And the script will then gather the browser telemetry and send it back to Evilginx Pro server for analysis. And then that's when Evilginx Pro actually makes the decision if it is a bot or not. Like I talked about it like last year at ZivCon as well. So if you want to look it up how it works exactly, you can check it out. And if the bot is detected, it will set the CSS style to not hidden. So it will show actually the website, and the user will see wikipedia.org. Like everything is fine, but maybe it's better to use not wikipedia.org for your phishing pages because it's a bad example. So you have, and when it's detected that bot is not detected, then it will redirect and load the phishing page to the target website, which is, for example, accounts.google.com, and return it back as a proxied login page. And this is like the gist of it, how BotGuard works, similar to how Cloudflare Turnstile would. So the takeaways here are, the majority of bots finally do not have JavaScript enabled even. So most of the detections will happen when analyzing like the contents of the website. So if wikipedia.org content is returned, like nothing will be suspicious about it. Bots see the proxied content of a legitimate website, and human visitors get redirected to the phishing page. That's when the BotGuard rules, of course, work as expected. So I actually made BotGuard as a cheap knockoff of Cloudflare Turnstile, but apparently, like someone told me that they tested both Cloudflare Turnstile and the BotGuard from Evilginx Pro, and Microsoft Defender for an endpoint actually did not detect the latter. So, like, points for me, I guess, for making a knockoff. So then we go to the interesting part, which is the obfuscation. So it is like the last layer of resort for actually protecting yourself from analysis on your phishing page. So you have the detection tools that will scan your phishing page. And these are usually Google Chrome Safe Browsing is one of the major ones, and this one is actually the most serious one when it comes to detecting and flagging your website as malicious. Then you have browser extensions. So here we have, for example, push security. And we have also Canary tokens, which work as a tripwire of informing the website owner when their website was used as in a phishing attack. Then the scanning targets of these security products are usually just scanning HTML content, JavaScript content, request URLs, which are very important, and we'll get to it in a bit. And then, of course, the DOM structure. Once the website is loaded, it will analyze on the client side what is the structure of the website itself. So first we have HTML obfuscation, and imagine like this is the part of the login screen of Microsoft, MicrosoftOnline.com. So what your phishing solution should do is essentially, like some people use Caddy for that, or other setup that actually intercepts the connection to the phishing page. And they will do the full HTML obfuscation. So here you can see it's just a simple script tag with a document.write, which will will decode the base 64 string with several string replacements and then push it out as a web content. So this will effectively block any kind of signature pattern detection of the bots that try to look for patterns, for example, like previously, to look for patterns that say it's Google, Microsoft, or whatever other login page that they may be targeting. So next we have also JavaScript obfuscation. And for JavaScript obfuscation, you can use like engines like, for example, obfuscator.io. So it will turn this kind of code into this kind of code, and it will dynamically. So with Evilginx Pro, it's actually at every reload, I think every 5 minutes, it will create a new randomly generated obfuscated output. So this also helps when you want to use, for example, browser in the browser, JavaScript, which is heavily fingerprinted by Google Safe Browsing, and you want to use it within your phishing pages and make it work. And then we get to client-side phishing tool detection. So here we have signature detection of injected web content. Cookie name, the cookie names can also be detected, and the detection moving is slowly to client side. So this is actually interesting because it looks like it is now the web browsers are becoming antiviruses on their own these days, because like scanning websites and phishing links from external point of entry is not that viable anymore, and actually the detection systems are being installed within the web browsers, which actually open these websites and can analyze the website while it is being rendered on the screen for the user who is getting phished. So one of the guys who actually is doing really great work is Luke Jennings. He's a Blue Team guy who's working as a head research at Push Security. So shout out to him. He's working on this Push Security browser extension, which actually does target Evilginx by checking one of the several signatures or IOCs, you could say, as well, essentially artifacts that mention that this is Evilginx running within the browser. So here is a post made by Rad Kabar. Rad is here at this conference, so also shout out to him. I also tried to convince him to make a talk about it because he did some great research on Push Security extension, and he managed to find how exactly Push Security is looking for Evilginx dynamically while the page is being loaded. So Evilginx, the open source version, uses like this pattern for cookie names. So it's like 4 characters, dash, and 4 characters, and then the value is always 64 hex characters. So this is like a pretty good indicator that something fishy is going on. Then there are script paths of the injected JavaScript that are injected within the reverse proxied website. And they usually start with /s/ and then again 64 hex characters. And this is like enough indicator for the extension to mark these websites as malicious if they are being detected. So for the open source version, I am not changing like these signatures. It's like the public version of Evilginx is also like meant to be like more of a proof of concept. You can change the source code yourself. Just it's pretty easy to customize it on your own. But it is also good like that the bad guys who are also using Evilginx, like we found out like 2 weeks ago, I think, they're also using it extensively. But yeah, maybe not 2 weeks ago, but since 2017. Now I want to get to the fun stuff. So the next level of actually bypassing Chrome safe browsing is using URL obfuscation, kind of. So let's imagine that you have this looks similar to the login URL of Google that you would use. I just simplified it a bit. I left like 2 get parameters that are intact and removed the others just to make it easier for everyone to see on the screen. So here you see what Google will do. He will see, okay, there's like a accounts subdomain. Then there's this URL path, which is also recognized by Google Chrome. And then it checks get parameters, their name and the value. And if they actually match the ones that they have, this is by the way, this is I found out about it through trial and error. So don't take my word for it. I did not reverse engineer Google Chrome to confirm it that it's really what it's doing, but through testing, that's what I managed to figure out so far. And when it is actually matching all the URL, subdomain, and the get parameters, it will then check the domain. Then it checks, okay, it's google.com. Okay, everything is fine. But what if it's actually a reverse proxy phishing page, which actually will preserve all the characteristics of the same URL? So the accounts, the URL, the subdomain, the URL path, and the URL query will be the same. And when Google Chrome sees all the parts that it recognizes, and then it wants to match the domain to google.com, that's when bad things happen, and you will see something like this, which you probably saw many times before. How many of you actually got their like phishing campaign burned because of this nice screen? Okay, so it's good to see. So the solution here is URL rewriting. So I've been also approached like many times by some people asking me if Evilginx would be able to do these URL rewrites, but I was unable to actually get it working pretty well. But now I think I finally found out how to do it properly. So this is like a new section you can implement within the Fishlet. This is currently right now only working in the Pro version. So what it will look like, it will look for the domain of the login page. So here, in this example, I'll be using the Microsoft.online example. Then it will check if it triggers the specific path, and then what path to replace it to. So here, like it's by example, it will replace it to /auth. And then you need to supply at least one key that it will inject into this URL, which also has the ID placeholder, which is like in this brackets, because I also need to maintain somehow in Evilginx like the index of all the mapped URLs that I used to be able to know what to redirect to after when the user is actually hitting these replaced URLs. So here in this example, let's say this is like a phishing link to Microsoft Online page. And so you have like a subdomain set to login, you have the path that is the same, and you have all the get parameters as well. This is also a simplified look of it. And then you get like the loginphishing.com maps to actually login.microsoft online, so that Evilginx will know when it comes across this URL, it will know to where to redirect this request to. And this will get rewritten to loginphishing.com /auth and with our TID key and a randomly picked ID that will identify this specific rewritten URL. So, for example, when the user actually opens this in Google Chrome, by the way, Google Safe Browsing also does pattern signature detection of the Microsoft website. Some people reported it. I don't know. It doesn't work most of the time, but that's what I also found out. So what the Google browser will see, it matched the subdomain, but it did not match the URL path or the URL query, so everything is fine. Like it was not able to actually match these parameters, these characteristics to the Microsoft login page in its database. So how does it work in transit when the data is proxied through Evilginx? So the browser will make the request to the real URL path of the phishing page that is proxying Microsoft login screen. So you can see this is the legitimate URL path on the host name of the phishing domain. And Evilginx will then respond with a location found with the redirect, because it already mapped this URL and it tries to replace it in the browser itself on the client side so that the client does not trigger the detection. Because the detection happens, what I found out, not when the browser is actually making the request towards the phishing page. It happens when the response comes in from the website, probably because also HTTP headers from the response are analyzed as well. Then when the browser later, after the redirection, tries to request this specific URL that is actually the rewritten URL by the reverse proxy, then Evilginx will know that, okay, this URL with this ID, which is randomly generated, is mapped to this login screen with all these parameters also intact. So it is also important to note that sometimes you cannot replace the full URL path. For example, it is not possible to do it on Google. You have to, so there is an option to actually whitelist several parameters of the GET request to not be replaced, and they will remain intact, and this TID with the randomized ID will be added to this parameter. That's because Google heavily uses its own JavaScript with their own obfuscation engine, and they will grab dynamically parameters straight from the URL address bar. So some parts have to remain intact, as well as the account subdomain, for example, has to also remain intact. So then, when the same happens in the other way, when actually the phished website, the destination, is trying to redirect the user to the URL we are trying to rewrite. So the location redirection will get essentially captured, intercepted, and it will also get replaced on the fly with our rewritten URL itself. So next thing I wanted to also talk about are the Canary tokens. So Canary tokens were developed by Canary. You can set them up, create them for free, and essentially they allow you to, for example, inject your URL link, which acts as a tripwire, into the supposed phishing page that would happen. So, for example, Microsoft Entra ID tenants allow you to supply your own custom CSS style sheet, and you can supply your own background for the login screen of your Entra ID tenant. And then you can use the URL that Canary tokens actually provide you with. So whenever the website whenever a visitor will open the link, even the legitimate one, the request will happen to this background image, which will actually include the referrer with the URL of the real website. So I'm gonna go dive more about it on the next slide. So there are also Canary tokens on JavaScript. So if this happens on the website that you are trying to phish, you will have to replace it dynamically with some kind of signature detection as well. So here is an example for website breakdev.org. So if the website does not match, if the domain does not match, it will make a request to an outside resource. But here I wanted to focus mostly on the CSS Canary token because it's harder to avoid, really. Well, it used to be. So here I wanted to give a shout out to Canary for releasing this research and actually giving everyone the way to use Canary tokens. They released a pretty nice blog post about it. And also shout out to Keanu Nis, who after several months released a very verbose post about how he managed to work with bypassing these kind of protections. And I'm going to dive deeper a bit how this works. So it's all reliant on the referrer policy that is set for the domain within the web browser of the website that you're currently browsing. So the default value is this one, strict origin when cross origin. And this actually will send the referrer header of the HTTP request whenever there is a link to an external resource present somewhere on the website. So for example, if you put a resource, a link to an URL that is not on the same domain in your CSS file that will point to the background image, let's say, like here in this example, it was at cloudfront.net. Cloudfront.net does not match the domain of the website you're currently browsing. And that way, the request will include this referrer header, which will actually look like this. So here you can see that if it was actually implemented on the phishing page, the request would include the phishing page URL exposing our phishing infrastructure. So how to actually avoid that, to prevent the browser from sending this referrer header? And we can just make it, since we are a reverse proxy and we can modify all of the packets going back and forth between the destination server and the user, we can inject our own HTTP headers in responses. And if you actually inject referrer policy set to no referrer in the response, then it will not send and it will not include any referrer information in any request, even if they are being sent to external resource. So this is actually done automatically for Evilginx, the open source version, like since I read this article, because I thought, let's find out how to bypass that then. And finally, so this is how the response would look like. So finally, Chrome would still send the referrer header, even when you set the referrer policy to no referrer. And that's exactly what Canaries had an issue with in his blog post, because he was thinking like, what's wrong? Like it's not acting as, it's not behaving as expected, as documented. So he mentioned that turns out they unintentionally identified a bug in Chromium browsers, and that thing actually triggered the whole set of events that they actually reported it to the Chromium team, but it got categorized as a low severity issue, and he mentions that there is no way of if they are gonna even fix it or when, and we can either pray that our target is not using a Chromium browser, or we are going to need a better solution. But fast forward to 2025, it was fixed. So I checked it like before when making the slide. So this referrer regarding Canary tokens is no longer in use, and it is actually not a problem anymore. You just need to set this no referrer in the response header, which is happening automatically with Evilginx. Then, as a bonus, I wanted to mention also browser in the browser, which is a thing that got a bit popular several years ago. It is not essentially like a way to evade anti-phishing detections, but I thought it's important also to mention it. So the origins are, it was released by Mr. Docs in 2022, and it is how it works. It is essentially UI written in JavaScript, which mimics Windows or Mac window within the website that you are watching. And in this fake UI window, there will be an iframe with your phishing page. So here you can see, well, here you cannot probably see because it's too small, but in the window, you actually are able to, since you control the rendering of this window, which is fake, you can put your own URL in there, which will say like login.microsoftonline.com. It will not contain your phishing hostname at all, or Google one. So then it all revolves around iframes and clickjacking. Why there is an issue with browser in the browser these days? So back then, like in the 2000s, there was a pretty popular attack called clickjacking. And what essentially clickjacking is you are rendering a part of the website that you wanted to target, let's say like a facebook.com with a like button, and you would put another website on top of it and made it so that, and then you made some enticing image on this top layer so that the person who was actually clicking this, this layer that was on top would click the like button beneath, and that was how clickjacking worked. So you could actually trick users into clicking the buttons on the websites they are logged into through this kind of like a sneak attack. So websites started implementing ways to not have to run within iframes, because it was not necessary. It was also not needed. Iframes became an issue. So there are now multiple ways to prevent websites from loading within iframes. So, for example, you can set HTTP headers within in the responses from your own web server to deny the X-frame options. You can set the content security policies. So in your way, your goal is to remove these HTTP responses if you want to do browser-in-the-browser injection. So for JavaScript, it's a bit more tricky, complicated, because the JavaScript detection of iframes is pretty straightforward, pretty easy to implement, but it is also sometimes hard to detect when you're actually targeting a website and you want to implement your browser-in-the-browser there. So here you can see that the website will actually check if the top window is different from itself, and if so, replace the URL of the top window with its own. So the iframe will detect that it's not the top window, and it will put its own URL into the top window, which will redirect redirect the top window to the iframe, essentially. So this prevents any form of iframes. So later, a very clever man, Wael Mas from Cyprus, he made like a very great talk about frameless browser in the browser. I forgot to put a date, but I think it was like 2 years ago. And what he did is actually, he did not use the iframes. What he did was actually use the rendered website of the phishing page, of the proxy page, for example, Microsoft sign-in screen, and modify its contents to include the fake dialogue within its own HTML code, which is pretty complicated because he made a demo for Microsoft website, and you had to like specifically make it super custom to make it work. So making like a universal solution is very complicated because you need to prepare your own modifications for every single website you are trying to actually target. So it works the same way, it looks the same way, and works great, but it will be difficult to implement it for websites that are not single-page sign-on screens, like, for example, Microsoft.online. So if you have like websites that need to reload after a while, then you will lose the modifications of the HTML content that it's doing, and you will have, and this will not work that much. But all is not lost. There are ways to still overcome like iframe blocking and make browser-in-the-browser work again. So first we need to just find the JavaScript anti-frame code, like the one with the checking if it's a top window or a sub window, and then just replace it in real time. It has to be done customized for each website, but also if the website has any kind of protections against reverse proxy phishing, which are checking the domain name, for example, in the URL address bar, that also needs to be removed. So this is just some additional work that has to be done. And apparently, a fellow hacker, author hacker on Twitter recently, I think more than a week ago, published his own fishlet for Evilginx, which actually removes the protections of Okta sign-in page, removing all these iframe protections and making iframe browser-in-the-browser work again. So really shout out to him, like really terrific work, and it also proves that it can be done on any website. Just it needs a bit more work and just doing a bit of more analysis. So here's this summary. So too long didn't listen. How to protect your phishing campaign. So first of all, use wildcard TLS certificates to not expose your phishing hostname. Then filter web traffic with JavaScript bot detection tools like Cloudflare, Turnstile, or write your own telemetry analysis, gathering and analysis tools. Then obfuscate the HTML and JavaScript to protect it from signature detection. And then rewrite URL paths, which shows that it is very important to do, especially on these login pages, which are very heavily signatured, especially in Google Chrome browser. Or reverse proxy only the multi-factor authentication flow. And this is something I want to talk more about this year. I just need to do some proper research, but this is essentially what the cyber criminals are doing right now, for example, when phishing for Steam accounts. So they will do it the old ways, just render a static HTML web page with login and password, and when the user enters it, there's no reverse proxying at all of the web content, so there are no detections on the client side implemented within the JavaScript that's getting also reverse proxied from the destination website. So once the login and user login and password gets intercepted, entered to this fake login page, in the background on the server, the phishing server, it will make a request through the fake, well, it's not fake, it's like through a background browser running over there, logging in with the same credentials, grabbing the MFA challenge, and showing it back to the user in real time on this static HTML page. And when the user enters this MFA challenge, then they will also enter it in their background browser running on the server. So this actually is game over for most of the anti-phishing protections, and the last resort is actually use passkeys and FIDO2 solutions that way. So Evilginx is out. All of that I talked about is currently implemented in the Pro version. So this is like a very short ad for that. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the last talk of this today. If you have any questions.